Meet the all-new, highly anticipated Norton Manx R, developed in close collaboration with its new parent company, TVS. In fact, it's all new 206 horsepower, 130 Newton meters strong, 72-degree V4 engine is assembled right here in India for the world, and it can be easily distinguished as one of the most beautiful superbikes that we have seen in a while, thanks to its forward inclined retro futuristic design, gorgeous colorways. You have this sexy single-sided swing arm, a chassis which is machined as a single unit. It is adorned in carbon fiber in this signature trim, and it is tricked out to the T with the latest gen electronics, including the first-in-class hill hold control, cornering cruise control, keyless ignition. You get Marzocchi semi-active suspension, which comes with potentiometers, the very first that we have seen on superbikes. And looking at its compact size and the lack of any winglets, it's a telltale sign that Norton had envisioned this more for the road than for setting the fastest lap times at a racetrack. The Norton Manx R. How long have we waited for this? But we are finally here for the first ride in sunny Spain. This beautiful circuit of Monte Blanco, my first time here, and that's how we kick-started the ride, by riding on a racetrack. I have to say, it's not the easiest track to learn. It's quite technical, it's really tight, and in many ways I can see why Norton chose this to highlight essentially the hallmark of this motorcycle, which is its agility. So they have worked really hard in terms of even the engine configuration, the 72-degree V4, having all the work that they've done in terms of mass centralization, keeping the exhaust exactly below the bike to keep it really mass centralized. And this obviously has the shortest wheelbase of all the superbikes that we know. So I was very curious to see how a 206 horsepower machine is going to deal with a wheelbase that short. I have to say that we did not get off to the best possible start, because immediately as we were on the track, I put in the track mode. You obviously have semi-active suspension here, and in the track mode, I think you have to be at a really high level. You need to be someone who knows the track at the back of his hand, or someone who is exceptionally talented and can get to the limit straight away. I had no idea where the track was going, and I realized very soon that at the speeds that we were riding, getting acquainted with the track, the track mode, especially in terms of the suspension setup, was a really bad idea, because it made the motorcycle really physical to ride, really heavy to steer, and I just found myself fighting the bike a lot, and it wasn't fun at all. It's only when we came back and I had a nice debrief with the Norton team, and that's when I realized that a sport mode or the road mode in terms of suspension setup would be much better to first get acquainted with the track. And on my second run is when I genuinely thought I got to understand the motorcycle so much better. Immediately, the agility of the motorcycle shined through, because it felt very quick on its feet. When the suspension was dialed in properly, the left to right chicane, which was so physically demanding earlier, became like a breeze. It was holding onto the line really well. Yeah, even under hard braking, you had all the support that you required. But let's backtrack a bit and let's first focus on the engine. So Norton has gone in a very different direction compared to the current crop of superbikes, which are more like really rev happy, very peaky. You get all the power right up the top, and there's nothing in the mid-range. Norton have gone the other way, and this makes the most torque of all of them, 130 Newton meters, of which 97 is available from as low as 5,000 RPM, and you can feel it straight away. It's a very different riding experience. You have to keep reminding yourself, because you're kind of expecting like the same hit which you get on a Panigale at the top. This one it's like a sleeper. Yeah, you are going deceivingly quick without even knowing it. You're just running through the gears really quickly. and you might feel that you're not going very fast, but actually you're going blisteringly fast. So it's a very deceivingly quick motorcycle. A lot of that also has to do with the exhaust sound. I think this is easily one of the most refined, one of the smoothest sounding V4s that I have heard. Firing order that they have, the uneven firing order, which helps the motorcycle grip. It also gives it a very distinct sound. It sounds really sweet, but it's not the loudest, which of course you can understand given the really tight emission norms and the noise norms that you have here. For the track session, we also had the bubble screen, which also meant that I am 5'11" and I could fit on this motorcycle really well. The rider's triangle is really nice and roomy, and yeah, I felt I had enough and more room to properly tuck in. The bubble screen obviously helped, especially on the straights. The only part which I felt was the seat. The seat, there's enough and more room here, but it's just that the way it slants makes it a little bit difficult for you to lean or like scoot all the way back when you're properly tucked in. It takes more of an effort, but more on that later when I talk about the road section. The braking, you have Brembo's high pure brakes, the best in business, and they do the part. What they have done though is initially the brakes are really progressive, and then when you pull it in with a lot more assertiveness, that's when you can really feel the stopping power. So initially, I'm the kind of guy who likes the stopping power up front to gain the confidence the bike's going to stop. But after, in the second session especially, I was feeling a lot more confident. Also in terms of electronics, I love them in terms of how seamlessly they work. You don't really find or feel the traction control working over time. Even the wheelie control, you don't have different levels. You only have wheelie control on or off. In the second part, I also switched off the wheelie control so that I can take control, and I also get a better understanding of the connection which you have with the throttle and the rear wheel. And that for me was the highlight. I think this is hands down one of the best super bikes that I've ridden in terms of the connection which you have from the throttle to the rear wheel. Yeah, you know exactly how much torque is going on to the rear wheel, the way it slides, the way you can feel the tires squirming, you feel all of it. So you have a really strong connection, you have really good feedback. So in the two right-hand corners at the back, especially the second one where you're essentially going full throttle, it felt amazing. The kind of grip which you had, the kind of mechanical grip that it generated with overall the mass centralization and also the uneven firing order with the power pulses, it really works. So the rear traction, the kind of connection which you get was phenomenal. The front, I feel also there's a lot of scope. I was told later that we were running slightly higher tire pressure. If we would have dropped the tire pressure, I would have also gotten the same kind of front end feedback that I was seeking, which I love so much on the rear. So that was my only thing, that I was just about getting to know the motorcycle, and my second track session was already over. But then we moved on to the road, and essentially that is what Norton has designed this motorcycle for. They chose to make the Manx R motorcycle, a super bike which you can use every day, which is why the emphasis on the mid-range, on a really wide power band. Even in terms of the ergonomics, it's not as front heavy, but the seat again makes it very easy for all the weight to come onto your wrists. Also on the road, I missed the bubble screen because there were sections when we were going over 200 kilometers an hour, and yeah, there was no protection whatsoever. So I would have definitely loved to have the bubble screen which we used here on the track. These are semi-active suspension from Marzocchi, and we are told that these are the first suspension which have a potentiometer on the forks as well as on the rear shock, which lets the ECU know exactly in which part of the stroke the suspension is working to accurately dial in whatever setting. So this is the closest suspension setup to an active state as we have seen on superbikes thus far. and it definitely works because in the road mode you can feel the compliance of the suspension. It's so good, it just absorbs all the undulations really well. We actually hit quite a few potholes and that did not deter the motorcycle at all. It took everything in its stride. The suspension setup, a semi-active suspension setup, which works so well on the track, also works so well on the road. In terms of, again, the mid-range, such an amazing thing to have on the road. But I did feel in terms of tractability, this is still a V4 engine. It still likes revs. I think you will still have to be around 3000 RPM for the engine to pull cleanly at really low speeds. When I was trying to pull in the second or third gear, there was still a decent amount of jittering. But once I got past 2500 RPM, the engine felt much, much smoother. Also in terms of heat, for a 1200cc V4, I was expecting it to heat up quite a lot, but again, they've done a lot of work to reduce the heat and also to send the heat away from you. I did feel a decent amount of heat near my thighs, but it was nowhere close to as bad as, let's say, a Panigale V4, which really cooks you up. But then again, we are in fantastic weather here in Spain, so I'll still have to wait till I ride this motorcycle, hopefully back in India, for the real heat test. But so far the heat management also seemed to be really good. The other things which I love about on the road is of course the huge 8-inch TFT display. The fact that it's touchscreen makes it so easy for you to toggle through the menu and all the settings that you want to dial in. And yeah, you just have so much visibility of exactly what's going on in the dash. The places where I feel this motorcycle can improve, I found that on the track and even on the road, a lot of times the bidirectional quick shifter, as long as you're really assertive with it, it works well. But if you are trying to shift, especially from the first to second at half throttle, it's not the smoothest. A lot of times when I was going down the gears, from say fifth to second, it worked just fine. A lot of times from second to first, it went into neutral. And that was quite scary. It happened a couple of times on the track and also on the road. In terms of the system, it is still a little bit glitchy in the sense of when I was riding up in the mountains, I was riding in the road mode and it suddenly went in the rain mode and it would not allow me to switch back to any other mode until I came to a stop. Turning on the DRLs was not the easiest. I had to switch off and switch on the motorcycle quite a bit. Also in terms of when you first fire up the motorcycle, the screen takes forever to start. So yeah, there are some technical glitches which need to be ironed out. But as a motorcycle, I absolutely love the approach that Norton have taken, because they have gotten beauty back to superbikes. It looks absolutely stunning with this amazing fusion of a futuristic design and some retro themes, very Daft Punk if you ask me. Especially the tail section. When I first saw the pictures, I wasn't really that sure, but in person now, it looks absolutely stunning. And not to mention all the carbon fiber bits everywhere. So you have really high-end componentry, a motorcycle which has taken a very different approach, which gives you a very different experience, which will take some time to get used to for people to wrap their heads around how this motorcycle works and how is it different. But the more you ride it, the more you end up enjoying it. Yeah, I'm going back really impressed and honestly itching for another track session on this motorcycle to see what it's truly capable of, because I feel we have just about skimmed the surface and the potential is so high. When is it coming in India? They won't tell us, they just tell us it's going to be really soon. Motorcycle is already launched in Europe. The delivery should start in June. Hopefully in the next another 2 or 3 months after that, we can expect the motorcycle to come to India. Fingers crossed. Pricing also, they're keeping their mouth shut. But this is a premium offering and it looks the part. It has the componentry to meet that premium tag. First ride of the Mang R from Norton, it couldn't have gone any better.